Okay.
I said that.
Well, hello, Cliff. Okay, now I've got to reclaim the spotlight. So I just started recording before you tuned in. So let me do this. I should be able to spotlight. Okay. Now we are trying a different PA system today. I got something from San Jose State because I'm in this big room with fans and everybody's wearing a mask. So it's an amp system. Okay. So I've got this on. This is different than our usual earpiece, Bluetooth. So far, so good, Cliff? Yes or no?
There's a little bit of echoey and distortion, but I can, make out what you're saying. And there's no feedback.
Okay. Really? The feedback is that strong, huh?
No, there's no feedback. There's just a little bit of echo and distortion.
Oh. Well, I'm kind of curious to see how that will come out in
right now. It's fine. So maybe when you move the mic.
Well, I think what we'll try to do, for example, in Mountain View, because I can hook this up to Bluetooth, give it to David. That way, what happens is people in the dojo can hear what I'm saying. That makes sense?
Yeah, that would be different. I mean, one of the few times that I'd had to, like when I had COVID and I had to dial in to the dojo classes rather than attend. It was always interesting hearing what you would say to each, pair of students. Because it's a different experience than being in class where you're like training with a partner. And when you come around, then, we hear what you say to us, but then you go somewhere else and I'm just training with a partner again. So it's a different experience. So I don't know, might be great, might be distracting, might be both. So, run the experiment.
Probably will be. I'm going to put you in a different scenario. You have no language skills other than English. We'll put you in Japan in the early to mid 70s. Tokyo, a lot of people speak English. In the country, no. You're training. You don't understand anything. What do you do?
Well, that's how I first started. I mean, one of the teachers who came from ASU to teach at the University of Chicago did it old school, and he didn't say a word in class. So we just watched.
Okay.
You watch and imitate.
Okay. But a lot of the class was lecture. Hikisuchi Sensei used to teach using Sensei's words. What do you do?
Just try to absorb the vibe if I don't speak a word of it. I had an experience like that where my first Tai Chi Sifu came from Taiwan, and he didn't speak any English, and he gave a demo. And during the demo, he spoke in, Chinese, and because he was figuring out that we weren't following, he decided to speak slowly and enunciate clearly in Chinese. But he had a translator, but the translator was so respectful, he wouldn't interrupt to translate. So we got these long lectures in Chinese, slowly, enunciated carefully, didn't understand a word of it, but it was good. We watched the demo part.
What was your attention like as opposed to like a normal class?
It was a demonstration rather than we weren't trying to follow what he was doing. I was kind of in awe because he did Tai Chi, Bagua, and Qigong, and he did like the long versions of forms one after another, and he had to be like 80. And, you know, if you don't know just how intensely a workout that is, then you wouldn't know. But I knew how much of a workout that was, and he wasn't breaking a sweat. It was impressive. You know.
Yeah, a lot of times what happens, your attention skyrockets. It just, a lot of times, you know, we're kind of used to our normal environment. Put yourself in a different environment. You don't understand the words. There's a lot going on other than the words feed the mind in a certain way, but sometimes there are other modalities. You pay much more attention to the movement. Okay, anyway, we're going to move on. Okay. This is a simulation of a 3-section spear. Okay. Normal spears are 2, cutting edge, pierce. This is 3. Okay, 3-sided. Izanami stood on the floating bridge of heaven with one of these, although it was obviously a celestial form. This is wooden simulation. A new vocal, and they stirred the heavenly brine. The islands of Japan came out of the drops that fell from the spirit. So, well, since I really liked working with this. Okay, and a couple of things. This is a little past jaw length. Jaw length for it's usually up to about here. Okay, and I'm inside. Okay, so a couple of things. If you're doing certain things, obviously it's very obvious which side is the spear point. So a couple of things I'm going to mention. If you hold in the middle and you do all these fancy changes, you tear your shoulders up. Okay, 10 years, it healed. 10 years, it healed. That's one thing about it. Right? So I hold kind of like in the middle. When I'm holding something that doesn't have an obvious point to it, I hold long side to represent the point. But here, all right? Now, movement, 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 movement. What I'm doing is a figure 8. Now what happens is I can go this way. With the hands spread out, I don't get the torque in the shoulder. Okay, boom, okay. In baseball, I'm a pitcher. This is the hardest thing on my arm. It's called a slider. And generally what happens with the slider is that the elbow kind of takes that torque. Boom. But, you know, when you're here, holding in the middle, and there's a lot of energy moving on out there, the shoulders take it. So I hold here. Make the changes like this. This. Okay. Now the other thing, for example, if I'm like this, I'm in a room, I'm likely to hit something, so you know it shortens, you know, the actual sense of this. So I kind of, this is kind of the center here of the staff. Of course, I have my own center line, but okay, so changes. Okay. For example, you're surrounded by a bunch of attackers. A sort of movement like this is like you're creating your own forest of spears. Oh, sensei, the founder, where she rolls, and so I said, when surrounded by a forest of spirits, your mind is your shield. English translation. But one of the, let's turn that around. If you're surrounded by a bunch of attackers, you create your own forest of spirits. Yeah, always thought, he didn't say that, but that was my interpretation. When you turn that around 180 degrees. And here, and that's what I call more the improv. I call it my own words, takibusu. And how that might be a little daunting. There's motion. There's more motion, more motion, more motion. That motion reverses, and that reverses within itself, and boom, we have something like that. You have the forest of spirits. Okay? So that's hard. So what we do is we start with a form, as much as I like to call it a form. And that's the 30 movements. So what I thought I'd do is just start out today, and we'll go through the 30 movements this way, okay? Now, for example, let's say this doesn't exist, it's just a stick. It's the striking motion. This is the striking motion. Now, I'm holding a spear. That's a piercing motion. This is the cutting motion. This is the cutting motion. They're different. Cut. Pierce. A lot of the Aikido movements the striking is a heavy form. The piercing cutting is something different. Okay? One of the worst insults you can give a swordsman is their sword work is like a wood chopper. Chopping wood, that's good. You might do something, but cut is a little different. Now, we're going to start out and go through, again, 30 movements. But you have now the visual sense. Now I'm also inside, so I have to pay attention to, I don't want to break anything, or smash anything. Right hand, spear, and obviously is up. Movement number 1. 2 starts with left hand grabbing the bottom. Swing to the right, cut back. That's a counterclockwise up spiral. Now swing to the left, down. That's a clockwise down spiral. Movements 2 and 3. 4 on. Boom. Okay, going through that again. One. Pure beingness, my interpretation. Just is. That pure beingness becomes conscious. We think of consciousness as purely kind of a mental, but it's body's part of it. Movement number 1. Beingness becoming conscious. Right word, consciousness within itself, mind, body. Started out as a unity. We go, oh, mental, good, physical, or conversely. Sort of that and intensely physical. Okay? It's not saying you don't like kind of use this as we're putting ourselves sort of back in the moment of creation. universe as a creation. Universe, a creation. Beingness, becoming conscious. Consciousness is a fancy word for this is heaven, but I call it mind. Okay. Fancy word for this, earth. But this could be body. A unity. Now, heaven, earth, standing in that place between heaven and earth is a place that he called Wame no Ukihashi. That's where Izanami stood with their version, a celestial version of the spirit. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, left hand, right hand, left foot, point, base, triangle. Not too wide, not too cramped, about a shoulder width. The grip from the top, not too wide. I'm not playing pool, not too crunched, about a shoulder width. Hold from the top. Okay. I'm not going to bounce this because it makes noise in the people downstairs, but you're dribbling from the top. If you go like this, you're carrying the ball. So holding the spear, loose, not sloppy. Too tense, too sloppy, loose. Right hand hip, left hand about shoulder width up. Feet form a triangle. The tip is about heart level, your own heart level. For this side view, extending, so knee covers toe. Off balance, too tense. As you're shifting there, the arms fully extend. And there is the follow through. The thumbs spiral in. Little finger, ring finger, palm. And then right there, boom, there's that follow through once the arms are fully extended. If you do that before, full extension, follow through. Full extension, knee covers toe. There's a slight slant. If I go this way and hit something, it backs up. Heart level, thrust heart level, but I'm holding it in front of and just under. Boom. So it doesn't back up. Here it backs up. Okay? And again, that thrusting motion involves a change of the body. Now we go over this again and again, but on the other hand, Kikizuchi Sensei, not that he taught this, but a lot of what I do is based on the stuff that I got from him and Shingu. That was bow, it's a longer staff. Most Aikido is Jo, shorter staff. But a lot of those are based on the spear movements. Okay, the 30 movements can be done with a staff, but it's based for me on my understanding of how the spear movements integrate into Aikido. And that thrusting motion. And the way I explain that change, again, we've done this before. There's a wall. There's a crack in the wall. I can't go into it this way, but I can squeeze in this way, but it gets narrow and narrow and narrow. Okay. It's narrower and narrower and narrower. Now, what we want when we're thrusting is that same change. Boom. Now, what happens, for example, when we're doing this change, it's not, this is why you see it's not a form. Boom. So if I do this properly, if there's an incoming, I'm off the line of the incoming. And if I go like this, my outgoing hits the incoming. Okay. Here, you notice the tip, it spirals around the incoming. Boom. Okay. Now, the spiral can be generated with the arms. The movement, see, the arms just go straight out. The rotating of the hips as we are doing that change, kind of right here, I'm on a skateboard going through that crack, and it's getting tighter. But as it gets tighter, I relax, focus. That's the thrust. Okay. Now, we'll go back to the beginning. One, two, three, four, five. This position, 6 is the thrust. 7, up, cover your head, head exposed, cover the head. Also, covering my face. You can go lower, let's see, I can go this way, the head's open. Boom. And if there's an incoming this way, I go this little block. But again, I'm working that change. So if there is something coming in, it doesn't go bang, it goes that way. 7 is both up and down. Now we're going back to the 5 position. Now here, we repeat 6, but this is movement number 8. Okay. So breathe a bit, open a bit, relax a bit. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is both up and down. 8 is repeat 6. Now, right hand, right foot, left hand, left foot back. Cover your head. Now, because I'm rotating, the cut is actually pretty much straight. But and keep myself covered right there. Okay. Now, for example, here I'm going to drop it to cut this way. Some people do that, but when I do that, I expose the head to an incoming. So what I really want is now I'm cutting to about my own head level. If you're facing somebody big, you're cutting to their level. Somebody shorter, you're cutting to their level. But for purposes of the movements, we're working with our own height. Now, cover the head again. Left foot up, right foot back. Now this is harder because the arms are crossed. But see, I'm forming the triangle. See, if I go like this, the head is exposed. Okay? So again, we're kind of going through the first 10 in some detail, but the body changes. the entering for both the thrusting motion and the cutting motion. Notice I'm saying thrust as opposed to strike, strike. And again. See, again, I'm off the line of an incoming, but able to reply to that incoming without being on the path of the incoming's attack. Okay, so both of those. Creating space. Now, all of those movements, for example, if the truck is coming, boom, the feet move off of that, but most people move off the feet. See the hips moving, boom. Okay, or conversely. Now, boom. If I move the feet, I draw the energy. But here, I'm going to boom. So your hip motion, your core motion, creates movement of your feet. Okay, so more advanced is you're moving off the line, but you're not moving the feet first. You're getting off the line, boom. And it's still that spiral, not with the arms, but with that straight and the hips squeezing through that crack. Okay, the thrust is a spiral. The cutting motion, see, it looks like it's a side strike, and it is. But I'm putting it right down the middle, right here. I'm open to an incoming. So I'm just like the thrust, in opening, I'm rotating the hips, so boom, there's some authority for that motion. Okay? So, again, movements 1 through 10. Cliff, any questions or anything you'd like to add there?
Just that when I rotate, I have sometimes a little trouble keeping my front foot facing forward and not having it rotate sideways with my body.
Okay.
And, I'm not sure if that's just like I need more turnout, like in ballet, or what. But that happens sometimes. It's something I have to pay attention to.
Well, it's the movements are very free at some point, and basic things, you know, like for example, again, I watched a Stephen Curry video on basketball, and of course he's explaining shooting. 10 fingers towards the hoop. Now you can rotate, but you know, 10 fingers towards the hoop. Feet. 10 toes in the same direction. Initially, for shooting a free throw, he kind of goes feet even. 10 fingers towards the hoop. 10 toes towards the hoop. Follow through once you get the full extension. Okay, and then he says, well, what I do, you know, as he gets out on the floor, he slants his feet slightly that way, basket there. And I you know, said, yeah, this is what I do, which means not everybody does it. Of course, Stephen Curry does it. Oh, I can try that too. So, you know, I mean, it's a point where that's crazy. But I go in there and I think, you know, why does he do that? So, you know, I take some shots, you know, with 10 toes, 10 fingers towards the hoop, 10 toes towards the hoop. Okay, 15 feet. And I start to kind of go out a little bit, and I start to experiment. See the toes, if the toes are funny. No, 10 toes face the same direction, but he's he kind of, depending on where he is, you know, the same direction there. And I noticed that when I slant the feet out, 10 toes, I get more arc on the shot. So I said, that's why he does that. But he doesn't say that. Okay. So, what's interesting is, I mean, I look at people, and they shoot like this, it's okay. This is how I think, But I think I always I didn't go this way. I went like that. I wasn't doing as well as, but, when I looked at his explanation of shooting, I was probably in high school later, intramurals, UC Santa Cruz. I was probably doing about 80% of what he was talking about. And then, watching the video, I went, oh, yeah, I wish I'd had somebody when I was that young. But nobody understood shooting like that then. The coach just said, well, if it goes in, just keep practicing. You know what I mean? So, there's a way where it's very important. Hikizuchi Sensei would, like the knee covers the toe, the grip. Tojima Sensei, you spiral, the thrust is a spiral. Hikizuchi Sensei didn't say that. He had a very, very much more strict regimen, like Stephen Curry saying 10 toes towards the hoop, 10 fingers towards the hoop. But what was interesting, and Tojima Sensei would add stuff that was seemingly a little different. But when Hikizuchi Sensei was demonstrating things with an attacker, he moved like Tojima Sensei. So it was a little tricky. You had to kind of go, oh, okay. But Hikizuchi Sensei was 10 fingers towards the hoop, 10 toes towards the hoop. And I think that, basically what Curry is saying is, if you really kind of, just research this, you'll find certain things. But I'm going to lay it out for you in a very basic way. So the footwork, the hand positions, the full extension. Now I'm adding a little bit that body change right there, which generates the spiral in the gut, or conversely. See, I go this way, the head, but see, off the line. Okay, so I'm adding a little bit in a different way, Okay, so I'm trying to be Stephen Curry explaining this. Okay, does that make any sense? No.
Yes, Sensei, that does. Actually.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, there's a little bit of
myself.
leeway. There's a lot of leeway. Okay, but when you're kind of looking at Tojima Sensei, study that and study that. And so, when he added something to the basic format of it, see, the difference is Hikizuchi Sensei was teaching kind of from a foundation of classical Budo. Tojima Sensei didn't have that, but he observed those sensei. He watched those sensei do it. And those sensei had a base in classical Budo training, but he added certain nuances that were really very, very much him. Okay? Curry's shooting, for example, one of his teammates, Andre Iguodala, said, I'm not going to teach my son to shoot like Steph. I'll teach him to shoot like Clay, because Clay is much more of a classical shoot. The Steph is boom. There's more magic in Steph's shot, though. Clay is incredible. Okay? Clay is much more of a classical textbook shooter. Curry is pretty much unique. And I don't know that anybody, that just anybody can shoot like him. Okay? But anyway, first 10. Any questions?
No further questions at this time.
Okay. All right. Now, we go from 10. Now here, the second set of 10. All the first 10 are fingers face away, even though fingers face the same direction up. That's the first change. Then we go second change, thumbs face. Third change, thumbs face towards you. Fourth change is deceptive. It's kind of the position, thumbs face away, but if there's a little bit more of that feeling of the follow through right in this position. That's the Yonkyo, fourth change, okay? Okay, so what we're gonna do from here, left hand on top, the thumbs face me, thumbs face each other. Turn, cover your head and your face. Step forward, thrust as before, but first series, now we do the same thing, thumbs face. Up, it's a cutting motion. We did the cutting motion here, but now we're doing the cutting motion with the thumb space. I still open the body, get out of the way of an incoming, and the turning of the hips powers the movement. Release the right hand, thumb space towards me. You can thrust with the back hand, thrust here. Now, thumb space. Grip the right hand. Now we're back to the first change. 1, 2, 16, 17, boom. 18, thumbs, face. 19, it's a thrust, thumbs, face. Rotate the hip. If this is sharp, I don't want to make a mistake. So I'm going to put that over here, turn the hip, 20, okay? So that's the middle 10, 11 through 20. So it goes, boom, boom, 11, 12, second change, 13, all second change, 14, plus back, 15, third change, and space. But it's back to the first change, step, turn, cut, 16, 17. 17 is not a great move with the spear, but what you're doing in this instance is you're relaxing your weight under, and in this position here, you are adding the closing motion. Eighteen, thumb space, you can trust with the non-piercing side. 19, now remember right here, you can just sloppy, but you're putting it to the side. If I go out here, I might run this up, and so I'm bringing it fairly close to the body. Getting that back there, because it could be a rear thrust, that's 20. It could all just be position. Okay, so that's the middle. And what we do, we get the second change, third change, the fourth change. Okay. $11, 12, 13, 14, that's the third change, 15, back second change, first change, step, turn, pivot, 16, back second change, 17, 19, and 20. Okay. Cliff, anything on those middle 10 movements, 11 through 20?
Yeah, it was actually really helpful with move 12 to note that you're extending again, you're rotating again, the body. That was a nice detail. That was kind of something I hadn't really focused on before.
Yeah. Okay. Now what we're going to, yeah, go on.
But But the suite of, 11 to 20 makes sense as a unit.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, introduces the changes 2 through 4. And it also introduces the turn and pivot, which is tenkon. Okay? All right. Now we're going to go 21, 30, which is, of course, the second 10 is more difficult than the first 10. The first 10 are very foundational because they introduce kind of the body change, which is the primary body change in Aikido is entering. As you keep entering, eventually it becomes a turn, doesn't it? Enter, turn. Yeah. Enter. There's somebody behind you. You're off the line. Step. Those two take each other out. Okay. That's really fine tuning the turn, which is the step and pivot.
Yeah, that's like a Jackie Chan move, getting them to
Yeah, I
take
know.
each other out.
Well, yeah, you watch your sensei, a bunch of people attack him, they run into each other all the time. He sort of understands the space between the attackers. And he kind of creates a kind of magnetic pull towards certain spots. So he creates the magnetism. He really lets the people go there. It's almost like they don't see him move, they see his image here. So he goes over here, and then they go through. Okay. So anyway, I mean that's these days, that looks like it's choreographed, which maybe it was to some degree. But okay, now we go through. Number 20, 21, a sweep. Boom. And this is with the second chain. Oh, 22. 22 is your palm here, no grip yet. 23, you finally grip. It's in the first change position. Rotate your hip. Your right side is forward, goes right, left. Now there's right, left, back to the center, and right, left, back to the center, cover the hip. There's really 4 movements in 23. If you kind of go 1, 2, 3, it's kind of 1, 2, back to the center, and okay. Curry passes the ball to Clay. Clay passes it to Draymond. Motion is created, the ball goes back to Curry, lined up to the hoop for a perfect shot. 1, 2, starts with 1, 2, but 3 goes back to the center, which is Curry. Curry, everything moves off of Curry. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and then he puts a shot up. Okay. I'm using, since he talked about gods and goddesses in the Kojiki, I explained it in terms of the warriors. Okay, right? Okay. So that's 22. 23 is the most complex. Now, slide up your left, slide down your right. 24. Now it gets us to Bring that in there. Change, right thumb down from the top. Careful here because that would be sharp. Take it, grip with the left, step back. That's 25. 26, left hand up, right hand down. No step, just turn. Cover. 27 is the change. This, the tip goes 360, thumb facing away, right grips, left grips. Now, notice the tip is there. Be careful in closed spaces. You form a full circle, another step, turn, pivot, 28. Now I'm going to go 29, and I'm going to poke myself or cut myself. 29, keep the tip in front, second change. Another awkward moment, so get it out a little bit, but not too far. Right hand, thumb away, left towards you, step back, that's movement number 30. So what the second change, the 21 through 30 introduce what I call the fire water changes. Thumb down, thumb up, thumb down, thumb up. Okay? Introduce. And they introduce, the two-handed figure 8 movements. Okay. So by far, first one, very foundational, introduces the body change. Second, introduces some of the hand changes, 2 through 4. Last set of 10, this is the fifth change, the Bokyo, the two-handed figure 8. Here, that's a fire water change. Now here, all I'm doing is doing that like a helicopter. Now what I do is I sweep fully, because maybe there's a whole group of people coming and they're going to face something sharp and cutting. And somebody's coming in from the back. Boom. Okay. Okay. Cliff, anything on that last 21 through 30?
I don't have anything specific on that set. I'm just, working on polishing it.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Now, there was a series that Stefan does on underrated skills and drills in basketball. And he does one, and he does something really cool. Like he's dribbling the ball, then he bounces the ball off the wall and it comes back. And he does something with it. It's almost like he's got the ball on a one of those things that goes this way. He's got it. And he says, your coach is not going to like this. In other words, it's like, don't fool around that way. But one of the things is Curry has those basics, and he's creative. And sometimes people say, you're being sloppy. No, you're expanding the range of who you are. In jazz, I try to play, basically you've got the notes of the song, the head, so to speak, and you've got the chords, and then you finish, the actual head of the song, and then you use the same chord sequence and you're improv, which is, anybody can just make it up, but when you're following the chord structure, off of the chord structure. And so, that way right there, that's I see Curry more like a jazz player. Okay, now, I've been using this. Inside, this gives me more freedom because it's shorter. This is a walking stick I bought in 2014 14 when I went to Japan to receive a promotion and met with the doshu, and it was big and everything like that. And highlight of the trip for me, go to the Nachi waterfall. And I bought this here. Okay, now that motion, or this motion, or this motion. Okay. Now the purpose, of the 30 movements, you're learning the body changes. Now notice how I can't do that anymore. I turn. Enter. Turn. The turning motion comes off the entering motion. If you don't understand the entering motion, you're going to mess the turn up. Okay. Now, let's just say I don't have this. I have something much shorter. Okay, now the long end for me, because I'm holding in the middle, I don't know which end is the sharp end, pointed end. So I hold kind of more towards a third, okay? And therefore, the long end is always okay. Certain things like, this is sharp, you don't want to walk with your spirit point. You don't walk, you go this way, but you don't want to poke yourself as you're doing that. The blocking motion. And when you can, you enter again. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. So I do a lot of work with shorter movements. Boom, 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 boom. Now there, for example, I'm using the third change. Boom, boom. Now I just off of that motion, I executed the turn, pivot, and strike, or fancier, sweep. Now here, fire, water, change. Point, long end, and step back. That's I believe movement number 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. The last couple of movements are designed to give you the beginnings of what I call, that's like Curry's underrated skills and drills. You work the basics. That's movements 1 through 30. But you add some creativity and flow to it. If you don't do that, you stay kind of limited. You stay too heavy. Okay? Boom, 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 boom. Okay? Now, a couple of tips. Tip number 1, when you're kind of starting to do this sort of thing, don't hold in the middle, even if you have an office, because when you're going like this in the middle, you'd be surprised. Your wrists take a lot of torque, your elbows take torque, but mainly in the shoulders. Okay, so you're holding in the middle of an obvious sharp end. Don't mind to worry about that. Boom. And here, boom, 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 boom. Okay. So I switched to something longer, but later. Now, one thing that happens right here is you have, I like this because I, using the long end. But, and this is something I've done before too. You rinse your back. So make sure the movements kind of come through the hips. Now that motion right here, I'm doing the figure, two-handed figure eight. You do in the form, right? Is this right here to third change, figure eight, figure eight. But this is too quick, and I start to kind of turn the back hips. Boom, boom. Now there, for example, here, this movement has the other one in it. Ooh. This is the mother, and this is the child the mother is kissing. Some of the stuff you have to kind of, I know, I mean, it's like Curry's saying, your coach will hate me for showing you this, which means I shouldn't do it, or yeah, I'll practice my basic ball handling drills. But then, when the coach isn't looking, or I'm by myself, practice with step it. Okay, so you have to work both worlds, all right? Now, I'm saying a little bit, when you pick up the lighter ones, like Curry, for example, he hurt his ankles when he was a lot younger, but they examined his movement, and they realized he was generating his explosion from his ankles. So what did they do? His hips, the core. They got him, they strapped him with resistance bands and made him practice this stuff. So one thing I do, I got this at the island of Kauai, but I do the same thing here because it's just got more weight to it. Boom, 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 boom. So here, boom, boom. You can move this pretty quick, but if you're moving it out here, it's too stiff. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. So what this does for me is it really the movement of the hips. What did I just do? Come down from the top, third change, two-handed figure eight with the third change, boom, boom, that's boom, second change. I go this way, boom. And here I have the right hand on top, and it has certain progression, but if I turn it around, it's the left hand on top, it changes everything. So I try to practice right hand, left hand. And I also do some work with this. Most people will do this because they want to build muscle. And what I work, Curry does his work in the weight room. But I always finish things because this is about, we live in a very dense, heavy world. Okay, yeah. So I like working with the lighter ones, but I do mix in a little bit of the heavy, just to make sure that I'm moving more from my hips and core. Cliff, anything?
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Just to focus on the hips especially is a good reminder.
Well, if you take like a weight bar and do that, like they have stuff, where they put them, where they put stuff on these resistance things, and they have them practicing this lateral movement. Unfortunately, I don't have a paid trainer to do that, so I have to create within my own.
Sure. My usual practice, Joe, is a little heavy, which I like because it does that. But I also have a bow that I've used outside to do like the 30 movements. And ironically, it's much lighter. It's made out of a lighter material. So it's long, but it's light. And so it's a very different feel.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's outdoors only because I'd knock over lamps and stuff if I tried it indoors.
Well, that long spear, that wooden spear, one that it's a copy of what Harry Sensei got with the party last Sunday. It's a gift for his promotion to 6th Dan. That's got some it's pretty heavy too. All right. So I just tried to give a couple of tips. I kind of gave him a couple of tips like that. So, sometimes, you have to, these days, everything is computer analyzed. These days they look at your movement. So somebody looked at Curry, put his movement in the computer. They realized he was generating his explosion from his ankle. So his first couple of years in the league. You play college, that's fine. You're playing pros, you play 80 some odd games, you play back-to-backs. So all of a sudden, if you've got a movement pattern that's off, it's going to show. And so, he had to have surgery, 2 surgeries on his ankle. What are they going to do? This guy is great, but on the other hand, he's always hurt. He may not last. So, somebody put his stuff in the computer. He had a personal trainer. The personal trainer had it analyzed. And all of a sudden they say, oh, we got to make sure he's generating his explosion, not from his ankles. Knees, of course, his knees go too, but from his hips. And now his lateral movement, both offensively and defensively, are really good. And if you look at him now, looks like a superhero. He's got muscle. But his trainer says, well, he doesn't just lift, he lifts a lot, but he keeps doing his basketball-related drills. And then he adds the muscle to that, and he kind of makes sure it's coordinated through his core. He checks his footwork, he checks his basics, 10 fingers towards the hoop, 10 toes in the same direction. For him, in distance, they slant out. But what does that do? He's doing a kind of Tai Sabaki that generates more loop in his shot, or arc. All right, and all of a sudden, instead of going 1, 2, he's boom. He's got a quick release and it goes this way, not that way, it can be blocked. Boom. So, I look at his movement, it looks to me, it's very Ike. And, he doesn't shoot this way, he has to rotate the ball as his. So he does bring the ball over here. He says, I shoot over here, but it does not really. That's the hoop. That doesn't change. He may move, but the hoop stays where it is. And right about there, starts to get underneath the ball. He keeps turning. It's like winding, the compressing spring, and then boom, follow through. Arms fully extended, follow through. Beautiful shot, beautiful piece of movement, beautiful martial arts related movement. Okay, anything before we go?
Nothing else that I can think of right now. This was a great class. Thank you.
Yeah, no. I just thought I'd add a little bit about the training tools. Go through the 30 again. That's important. I'd like to get a little bit more where we get into more of what I call the comprehensive dimension, where we're kind of improvising off of. That's like Curry saying, your coach is going to hate me for this. Which means, so you don't show your coach that you're doing that. You do that on your own. Or when the coach is, you see what I mean? I remember one time, I was, after school, B-level basketball, because I was short. And I was shooting free throws. And the coach said, why are you shooting it that way? Who taught you to shoot it that way? And I looked at him. I said, Bill Sharman. Sharman was the backcourt mate of Bob Cousy, who's a legend from many years ago. And Sharman was kind of like Klay Thompson to Cousy's Curry. Cousy was the fancy guy. But he had Sharman in the backcourt, who was an absolute knockdown shooter. And so, Sharman did an article. He set a record in the NBA for free throws made consecutively in Again, 56, which was a record for many years, has been broken many times, okay? So, you know, I can't remember what it was, but I shot my free throws that way because Bill Sharman said to shoot them that way. And the coach says, who taught you to do that? Why are you doing that? I said, article, Bill, shut him up. Bill Sharman says to do it? Okay.
It's
So,
important to cite your authorities when you're having these discussions.
where, you know, what you realize after a while is I think there is better. Because what happens is all the skills in anything are updated. They've been gone through computer analysis. Okay. I was one time at the Y and we were, you know, I met this guy and he was a baseball coach. And he's saying, you know, now we can teach almost anybody to throw 90 miles an hour, you know, in a fastball, right? And he was explaining the mechanics of it. But I said, look, Koufax, Sandy Koufax, Juan Marichal, they had a much higher leg kick. And he said, no, you stride, it's in the stride. Yeah, I said, yeah, but Koufax and Marichal. Okay? Juan Marichal had the heaven and earth thing where his leg would go up like that. Made it real difficult. And he had 3 arm angles and he had, you know, several pitches at each arm angle. He could throw them at different speeds from different arm angles. And then one time,
that's like the pitching equivalent of Bill Wallace.
yeah. I mean, if you're critiquing somebody, if you're, you know, this is what's tricky, is a lot of times teachers teach. I mean, you know, you're a basketball coach in the 1960s. What do you know? Well, you're the coach. You know, did this coach ever read Bill Sharman? I read Sports Illustrated and stuff like that, so I go, oh, Bill Sharman says to do that. I can't even remember what Bill Sharman said to do, but he was a knockdown shooter. He was the Klay Thompson of the 50s and 60s, okay? And then Bob Cousy was, you know, the big name at that time, you know, and he was kind of more like the Stephen Curry of that era. Not as a shooter, but ball handler, passer. Curry is a ball handler, passer, but he's also primarily, he's kind of like, nobody really has existed before him. Now there's a lot of people that are trying to play like him, okay? But Curry, you know, when he, you know, watch him shoot, it's very much like a sword cut or a thrust, okay? And when he's demonstrating ball handling, he made that. Boom, 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 boom. I think of the changes here, the fire water changes. Okay. You know, I don't think I'll ever meet him, or if I did, you know, I would, you know, nice stuff. You know, he's probably nod back because he's a pretty decent guy. You know. But he's, you know, I watch him. I study his movement because, to me, you know, the closest I've seen to anybody moving like Ueshiba Sensei in their particular sport or discipline is Curry. Right? I'm sure there are other people who think, no, that's this person or that person. But I study him because he's really on to something. Anyway, we're going to be meeting in Mountain View on Sunday. Okay, I'll try this in Mountain View because I found out how to hook it up to Bluetooth. Maybe I'll try to coordinate this with David. So not only will it get on the video, but you can hear me hopefully in class. What do you think?
I think that's great because it's come after kind of a rocky, echoey beginning. It got pretty clear for most of the class.
Good.
So, as we all know, the fans are a bit loud in the dojo. So even
Yes.
if you're just using it for when you're talking to the whole class, that would be useful.
Well, I mean, if you watch the video, the sound comes through. But if you're in the class, you may miss it. Not that I'm And, you know, what I'm trying to do here a little bit is add commentary. It gives you something to build on. Like Tojima Sensei, you know, he was explaining. I asked him, what's more important, the sword work or the bow work? And then he looked at me and he said, bow. And he said, Tai sabaki ga haiteru kara. You study the body changes more in the bow movements than you do with the sword. If I watch Sensei's partner, the partner sword work, he's kind of doing, and bow really comes from spirit. He's doing the body changes of the spear with the sword. Okay.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So, you know, when that, and Tojima Sensei, you know, always stayed with me. So, body changes of the spear, or in the time he referenced the bow, because I don't think he studied the bow because he studied O Sensei and saw the movements of the spear. So the words sometimes can stay with you for generations. Now, whether or not this will stay and survive generations, I don't know. But anyway, we're going to go. So I'm going to, first of all, going to stop the recording. Stop recording.